Nick Saban clapped back at comedian Shane Gillis. During ESPN's College Gameday on Friday, comedian Shane Gillis, who is College Gameday's guest picker, joked about Alabama paying players. And as the show went on, you could absolutely see that it completely pissed Coach Saban off, right? You just see it right through his eyes. Now, later on the show, Pat McAfee reminded Gillis that he called Coach Saban out, right? Basically calling Coach Saban a cheater earlier in the show. Gillis went back in his comments saying, look, this is a fun show, right? Is this a serious show? Coach Saban wasn't playing. Then Coach Saban clapped back. I do believe in integrity. I've always tried to run the program that way so the players had a better chance to be successful in life. We made more money in the NFL than any other school, 61 players in the league. That was how we cheated. We developed players. Gillis also took a dig at Coach Saban as, you know, he had the top hat on, right? And he compared Coach Saban to Indiana Jones. In fact, he called him Alabama Jones. Coach Saban also brought up a lot of great points during College Gameday, calling for college football to align with the academic calendar and create national legislation. You really can't blame the players because if you're going to have integrity, you've got to have integrity by a set of rules. Coach Saban continued, I mean, we have a constitution, we have a Bill of Rights. It should never be that a player can leave his team before the end of the season. Kind of talking about Penn State's backup quarterback having opportunities to leave while his team is literally in the playoffs. Coach Saban continued, I personally think we need some national legislation to make the rules in the same in all states because right now different rules govern each state in terms of what you can and can't do with players, Saban said. I think it's up to the NCAA to sort of say we've gone a little bit overboard to give these players all these opportunities. You have no player contracts. And that is where college football is broken. At least one of the areas that college football is broken is that players can take NIL deals, but then there's no contracts to those players staying at that particular school, right? So every single year, what you're continuing to see in college football and what you're going to see even after the spring window is Alabama having to re-recruit their players based on their value. This goes for every single school, right? So let's just say, for example, that player X has an amazing spring and absolutely tears it up. Well, because he's at a high-profile school, he's going to get more notoriety. And when this transfer portal window opens up in the springtime again, this player could go into the spring transfer portal window and be recruited somewhere else and take a bigger bag, right? There's no contracts keeping these players here. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next course of the couple of seasons because college football is not only broken in that particular area in terms of players not having contracts and this whole NIL, but also how the college football playoffs continue to operate. Last night, Notre Dame defeated Indiana by a score of 27-17 in a game that was not competitive from the jump. I think it was entertaining for the first 5 minutes of the game, but as you could see, Indiana was not a playoff type team. Did they have a good season overall? Yeah, of course. But I think same thing. While different states have different rules for different players, conferences have different strength of schedules, and a big conference definitely didn't have a tough schedule for Indiana. Notre Dame, for example, doesn't even play in a conference. So think about this. Indiana, Boise State, or UNLV, because those two teams play in the Mountain West, you could label them playoff teams for the next however many years as this playoff system is completely broken in that area. You really, out there, college football fans, you really think that Indiana would have beat Ole Miss, would have beat Alabama, would have beat South Carolina? That the answer is no, they wouldn't have. Now, while we're past these teams making the playoffs, it just shows you last night how broken that system is. Another area where this is all broken is the fact that you have a signing period that is pushed way up early in December, right? So imagine what a coach who is in the playoffs had to deal with, okay? You had to deal with signing day on December 4th. You had to deal with the transfer portal opening up. You had to deal with maybe you have a first playoff game, right? You have to deal with all the roster management that's taking place. I mean, Mike Johnson, a former All-American here at the University of Alabama, said that he knew and he knows of boosters that are paying a team to stay together during the bowl season so they can operate. Like, that is not it. That is not the system. And then on top of that, think about this. when does the transfer portal end this year? December 28th, right? No, because of where Alabama's bowl sits. Alabama's transfer portal window is extended to January 5th. So don't think that you've seen the end of the transfer portal for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I was thinking about this too, is like, if these players don't get the opportunities in this upcoming bowl game against Michigan, who's to say that they don't hit the transfer portal after this game and go somewhere else, or vice versa? Let's say a player, right, has an amazing game against Michigan. Well, the transfer portal window is still open, so theoretically, this player could be poached off having an incredible game against Michigan. You see what I'm saying? How broken that type of system is? There's a lot of areas where college football is off the rails. There's no guardrails, there's no guidelines, and that's why I'm curious to see if this whole experiment with Bill Belichick coming to North Carolina, if that's going to work or not. Because this guy's coming from the NFL, following retirement, and the NFL has unions. It is buttoned up, right? College football is the complete opposite of that. And I want to see if he stays at North Carolina for even more than one. Honestly, I want to see if he coaches this season. All right, last thing I want to hit on, you have college football matchups today. 3 more college football playoff games. You got Clemson taking on Texas. I think Texas is going to beat Clemson up and down the field. Texas is a team that is well built. I think that Clemson is another pretender out there. I think they're playing probably with a little bit more confidence just because they won the ACC, and Dabo Swinney's a coach that has that fire in the belly. But I'm taking Texas in that one. SMU going up to Penn State. I've been tough on Penn State. I've said that a bunch of times. I think that Penn State looked really good against Oregon, to be honest, and I think that Penn State will be able to handedly beat SMU. Look, SMU had a good season. I just think that comparatively, the ACC was not as strong as SEC. We've talked about that a million different times. And then the other playoff game between Ohio State and Tennessee. That game, I think, will be the best out of the 3, obviously, being those 8 Type 9 seeds. Coach Saban came to defend Ryan Day on game day as well. And I think that Ohio State has a ton to play for. Look, Ryan Day is constantly criticized that he doesn't win the big game. And let's be honest, he really doesn't. Going into this game against Tennessee, there's a lot on the line for Ryan Day. I mean, he loses this game to Tennessee and Josh Heupel. I think that you could be looking at a new coach for Ohio State, which would be absolutely crazy. I mean, this was a team. I think there's 2 teams that try to build their roster entirely on NIL and, giving players the bag, and that's Ohio State and Ole Miss. And when those teams, one of them doesn't make the playoffs, and the other, let's say they can't even get out of the first round, that would be a terrible look for the Buckeyes. With that said, I think Ohio State has enough offense to win this game. Want to hear from you inside the comment box. Post your picks for the college football playoffs. Can't wait to hear from you. I'll catch up with you on my next live. I appreciate the support. Coming to you from beautiful Santa Fe, New Mexico. Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube.